The cold hit him first. The air conditioning in the conference room was always set too low, like they were preserving something that was already dead. Lucas Chin stood just inside the doorway, his hand still on the handle, and watched Vivian Lee slide a thin stack of paper across the polished table. Vivian ran human resources at Titan Peak Technologies. She had a smile that looked painted on and eyes that calculated everything like a spreadsheet formula. "Lucas, have a seat." The voice came from behind her. Marcus Zhao, the new vice president. He was 2 years younger than Lucas. He was also CEO Stephen Zhou's nephew by marriage. 3 months ago, he'd appeared out of nowhere with a corner office and a title that put him right above Lucas's head. Lucas didn't sit. He walked to the table, picked up the document, and read the header. Employee Performance Improvement Plan.
His stomach didn't drop.
It tightened, like a fist closing around everything he'd built over 7 years. "I don't understand," he said. His voice stayed level. That surprised him. Last quarter's project rating was A. My annual performance metrics led the division. What's the basis for this? Marcus leaned back in his chair. He folded his hands across his chest. The posture of a man who already knew how the meeting ended. Your technical skills are acknowledged, Marcus said. The company appreciates your contributions. He paused. Lucas knew what was coming next. The pivot. The knife. But technical ability alone isn't enough. Titan Peak is in a high-growth phase. We need leaders with comprehensive vision. People who can drive teams, execute cross-departmental strategy, and align with the company's evolving direction. Marcus's eyes didn't waver. Your performance in team leadership, interdepartmental collaboration, and understanding of the new product direction has been lacking. Vivian jumped in. Her voice was a recording. The company recently conducted a comprehensive capability assessment for all mid-level management. We identified gaps between your current performance and our expectations in 2 key dimensions: strategic alignment, leadership innovation. She tapped the document with one manicured nail. This PIP represents an opportunity. 3 months to demonstrate measurable improvement, to catch up with where the company is heading. Opportunity. Lucas almost laughed. Everyone in tech knew what a PIP meant. It wasn't a development tool. It was a paper trail, a prelude to a clean, quiet termination. 3 months of impossible goals, subjective evaluations, and a final signature on a severance agreement that would cost the company pennies compared to what he'd given them. Vivian. Marcus. He lifted his head and looked at them straight. The Genesis Project. I led that team for 6 months. We shipped the product that's now your highest revenue line. The Ether System Architecture Overhaul. I pushed that through when everyone said it was too risky. System stability increased 200%. Are those not hard battles? Do those not count as strategic support? Marcus's expression flickered, just for a moment. Then the plastic smile returned. Lucas, the past is the past. The company needs to look forward. He tapped the table with his knuckle. We're adjusting strategy. We need younger talent. People with fresh energy. People who really understand where the business is going. Your thinking is too technical, too rigid. You're not adapting. Younger talent. Lucas looked past Marcus, through the glass wall of the conference room. Outside, a cluster of recent hires were gathered around a monitor, laughing about something. Ivy League grads. Marcus's inner circle. They talked constantly about disruptive innovation and paradigm shifts. Most of them couldn't write production code if their lives depended on it. Everything clicked into place. This wasn't about performance. It wasn't about strategy or alignment or any of the corporate buzzwords Vivian had parroted. He'd been at Titan Peak for 7 years. He knew where the bodies were buried. He knew the architecture, the client relationships, the internal politics. He knew too much. And Marcus, the nephew with a new title, had plans that didn't include someone who could see through them. The tightness in his stomach turned cold. Then it turned calm. So, what's the decision? He asked. Vivian pushed the PIP toward him again. The company values you, Lucas. If you sign this and commit to the 3-month improvement plan, there's a clear path forward. And if I don't, Marcus's tone hardened. Then the company will consider your refusal as an unwillingness to improve, to grow with us. Based on the assessment that your current capabilities do not meet the requirements of your position, we'll have to terminate the employment relationship.
He paused.
You'll receive the legally required severance. N+1. Capabilities do not meet the requirements. 7 years. Late nights. Weekends. Birthdays missed. A marriage that had crumbled somewhere between the 3rd server migration and the 5th product launch. He'd given Titan Peak everything, and they'd just labeled him incompetent. Lucas nodded slowly. He stood up. I understand. His voice was quiet. Final. I won't be signing. Process the severance according to the law. Today is my last day at Titan Peak, correct? Marcus blinked. He hadn't expected it to be that fast. That clean. Yes, he said, recovering. Your system access will be revoked immediately. You'll need to complete all handover procedures and vacate the premises by end of business. For information security purposes, someone will accompany you while you collect your personal belongings. Fine. Lucas didn't look at them again. He turned, pulled open the conference room door, and stepped out. The hallway was suddenly quiet. People who had been lingering near the door scattered. Heads ducked behind monitors. Fingers began typing furiously on keyboards. Everyone suddenly looked very busy. He walked to his desk. A guy from administration was already waiting. So was a security guard. The admin kid looked embarrassed. He shifted his weight from foot to foot. Lucas, sorry. Orders from upstairs. It's fine. Lucas opened his drawer and began packing. A thermos he'd used for 7 years. 3 technical reference books with cracked spines. A framed photo of his team. They were standing outside the building after the Genesis launch. Everyone was grinning. Stephen Joe had his arm around Lucas's shoulder in the picture. The same Stephen Joe, whose signature was on the PIP authorization. Lucas stared at the photo for a long moment. Lucas. The voice came from beside him.
Low. Tight.
He looked up. It was Cole Lang, his lead developer.
His protege.
The kid he'd hired fresh out of college and trained into one of the best engineers in the company. Cole's eyes were red. His fists were clenched at his sides. Behind him stood 2 more members of Lucas's core team. Felix Peng, the back-end genius who never spoke much, but wrote code like poetry. And Oliver Lee, the front-end prodigy, whose design instincts were sharper than anyone Lucas had ever met. They were all watching him. Their faces showed the same thing: anger, disbelief, and a cold, creeping fear. If they can do this to him, they can do it to any of us. It's fine, Lucas said again. He forced a smile and tried to put the photo frame in the box. Cole grabbed his wrist. This is not fine. Cole's voice shook. It's bullshit. The Genesis project. You saved that. The ether system. You rebuilt it from the ground up. They're kicking you out and calling you incompetent? That's garbage. That's... His voice was getting louder. People were turning to look. Lucas gripped Cole's shoulder and lowered his voice. Cole. Not here. This is still their building. Their building. Cole pulled away. His voice rose, not quieter but harder. A company that does this? Who cares about their building? Lucas, you walk, I walk. I'm done. Me too, Felix said. He stepped forward. Quiet. Solid. Same, Oliver added. He crossed his arms. Warmth flooded Lucas's chest, but it came with weight. He looked at them. These 3 men had mortgages, families, student loans. They weren't in a position to throw away steady paychecks on principle. Stop it, he said sharply. You have responsibilities. Don't make decisions you'll regret. My situation is my own. He shoved the photo frame into Cole's hands. He held his eyes for a long second. There was something in that look. A promise. A message Cole couldn't quite read yet. Keep doing good work, Lucas said. Then he lifted the cardboard box, nodded at the security guard, and walked toward the elevator. Every step felt weighted. Eyes on his back. Some sympathetic. Some gleeful. Most just relieved it wasn't them. The elevator doors closed. The Titan Peak logo on the wall disappeared behind brushed steel. Lucas stood alone in the descending box, holding 7 years of his life in his arms. It wasn't heavy. The box weighed maybe 10 pounds. But his legs felt unsteady. His chest was hollow. He walked out of the building into the afternoon sun. 4 o'clock on a Friday. The street was alive.
Cars.
Pedestrians. People heading home for the weekend. Normal life humming along. He stopped on the sidewalk. For the first time since he was 24 years old, he had nowhere to go. 7 years. He'd joined Titan Peak as a junior developer. He'd climbed to technical director. He believed this place was his future. His purpose. He'd trusted the promises. The bonuses. The stock options Stephen Joe had dangled at last year's celebration dinner. And now a man 2 years younger than him, with a fraction of his experience, had labeled him a failure and thrown him out like expired inventory. His phone buzzed. A message from Cole. "We're at the usual place. Whatever happens, come see us." Lucas stared at the screen. He took a long breath in. Then he let it out. Maybe leaving a place that didn't value him wasn't the end. Maybe it was the beginning of something else. He didn't know yet just how fast that beginning would come, or how much it would change everything. The usual place was a small barbecue joint tucked into an alley behind the tech park. The kind of spot with plastic stools, smoke-stained walls, and beer that came in bottles you open with your teeth. Lucas's team had been coming here for years. After every launch, every crisis, every victory, he walked in carrying the box. Cole, Felix, and Oliver were already at their table. 3 bottles of beer sat unopened. They stood up when they saw him. "Sit," Lucas said. He placed the box on an empty chair, pulled out a stool, and grabbed a bottle. He popped the cap off with the edge of a lighter and drank deep. The cold liquid cut through the tightness in his throat. Cole couldn't hold back. "Lucas, what's the move?" "Zhou and Zhao are snakes. Pure snakes. Genesis is stable. It's making money. So they cut you loose and shove in their own people? That performance excuse is bullshit, and everyone knows it." Felix adjusted his glasses.
His voice was flat.
"I checked. The guy taking your position is one of Marcus's buddies. He came from some mobile gaming startup. He did operations. He doesn't know anything about system architecture. They're clearing house so Marcus can turn the tech division into his personal operation." Oliver stabbed at a dish of peanuts with his chopstick. "There's already a new initiative. Something called Project Stellar. Massive budget. Your name got removed from the proposal documents 2 days ago. Coincidence?" Lucas listened. He drank more beer. The barbecue smoke.
The malt smell.
The noise of other tables. This place used to feel like home. Tonight it felt like standing on the edge of a cliff, looking back at land he could never return to. "I know," he said. "All of it. I know." He set the bottle down and looked at them. "Me leaving might not be bad for you. Short term, Marcus needs you to keep things running. You're the ones who actually know the systems. You're safe for now." Cole slammed his hand on the table. "Safe? Lucas, what do you think we are? You think we want to stay in that place? Watching that idiot and his crew of bootlickers destroy everything you built?" Felix looked up. His eyes were steady behind his glasses. "Lucas, I'm with you. Wherever. This company is done." Oliver put his chopsticks down. "Motion carries. Unanimous. What are we building?" Lucas looked at their faces.
Young. Fierce.
Loyal in a way that no salary could buy. The cold place inside him cracked open. Something warm pushed through. He still had this. He'd lost a title, a paycheck, a corner of a building. But he hadn't lost his skills. He hadn't lost his reputation with the people who actually mattered. And he hadn't lost these 3. He leaned forward. His voice dropped. "What if I told you I have an idea? Something risky. Probably no income for a while. Might burn through everything we've saved. You still in? Cole's eyes lit up. Hell yes. I can survive on ramen. Tell me you've got a plan. Felix and Oliver nodded. Lucas smiled. It was a different smile than before. Harder, sharper. The smile of a man who had nothing left to lose and a debt to collect. Marcus thinks we're too technical, too rigid, not suited for his grand vision. Lucas set his bottle aside. I've looked at their Project Stellar. It's a bloated, all-in-one enterprise SaaS platform. Big promises. Terrible architecture. Designed by people who've never built anything that actually works. It's a money furnace. So Oliver leaned forward. We built something that actually solves real problems, Lucas said. No platform. No ecosystem. One point. Drill deep. Something for small and mid-sized businesses. E-commerce retailers. Brick-and-mortar shops. Intelligent inventory management. Supply chain synchronization. There's demand. We have the technical foundation from the Ether system. We can adapt it. And startup costs are low. For people, that's all we need. Cole smacked the table. My cousin runs a clothing business. He's always complaining about inventory. Stock numbers never match. Supply chain is a mess. If we built something that actually worked, he'd use it tomorrow. Felix was already modeling in his head. Technically feasible. Ether's architecture is lightweight and elastic. Perfect for rapid deployment and low-cost maintenance for smaller clients. Oliver rubbed his chin. UI can be dead simple. Minimal training required. We could prototype a minimum viable product fast and test it with a couple of seed users. Lucas watched them shift into gear. The energy in the room changed. This wasn't a wake. It was a war council. This was his team. They weren't replaceable parts. They were the engine. The next few weeks moved fast. Lucas rented a cheap live-work unit on the outskirts of a city. Concrete floors. Bad lighting. A bathroom that smelled faintly of mildew.
It was home now.
It was also their first office. Cole, Felix, and Oliver submitted their resignations within days. Marcus tried a half-hearted retention pitch, probably just for appearance. When they didn't budge, he signed off quickly. Lucas suspected he was happy to clear more seats for his own hires. They stripped down the core architecture of the Ether system and rebuilt it for a new purpose. Days blurred into nights. They coded. They argued. They sketched on whiteboards. They threw out work and started over. They slept on air mattresses and ate instant noodles and forgot what daylight looked like. Their savings drained fast. But something strange happened. Everyone's eyes stayed bright. This was different from the last year at Titan Peak. Every line of code had a purpose. Every feature had a face. They knew exactly who they were building for. They could see it, feel it. They named the project Arkansas. The idea was simple. The market was uncertain, stormy. Small businesses were drowning in inventory chaos and broken supply chains. Ark would help them survive, help them grow. A vessel in rough water. 2 months later, the first internal beta was ready. They convinced Cole's cousin to test it. Then a friend of Oliver's who ran a coffee shop. They took every complaint, every confused question, every angry late-night call, and turned it into improvements. They became experts in retail operations almost by accident. SKU management, inventory turnover, supplier coordination. Terms they'd never thought about before became daily vocabulary. Ark was starting to look like something real. And then, out of nowhere, an opportunity knocked. Lucas was in the apartment, reviewing a build, when his phone rang. Unknown number. He almost let it go to voicemail. Hello. Is this Mr. Chun? Lucas Chun of Ark Intelligence. The voice was brisk. Professional. My name is William Wu. I'm the procurement director at Rail & Trading. I came across some technical articles your team published on supply chain synchronization. I'm very interested. Would you be available to meet? Rail & Trading. Lucas searched his memory. It clicked. Regional distributor. Fast-moving consumer goods. Handled several major brands. Significant operation. Multi-million-dollar annual revenue. Why would a company that size be calling a four-man startup working out of a converted apartment? It didn't make sense, but it was the first real lead they'd had. Absolutely, Lucas said. Tomorrow afternoon? They set the meeting at a coffee shop downtown. Lucas put on his only decent suit and showed up 30 minutes early. When the man walked through the door, Lucas froze. The world had a dark sense of humor. It was William Wu, the same William Wu who had been one of Titan Peak's clients 3 years ago. A project Lucas had personally led. Stephen Zhou had brought him along to close the deal. They'd spent months customizing an inventory and sales management system for Raylan. Lucas had been on site for nearly a year. He'd taken countless late-night calls from this man, troubleshooting issues, refining features. The project had been a success. William had been happy. They'd even shared a few dinners. Then roles had shifted. William stopped dealing directly with their team. Contact faded. Now he was standing in a coffee shop, staring at Lucas with the same shock Lucas felt. Lucas? Lucas Chen. William walked over quickly. He looked Lucas up and down. I saw the name on the appointment and thought it was a coincidence. What are you doing here? I thought you were still at Titan Peak. Lucas stood and offered his hand. His smile was carefully measured. William, it's been a long time. I left Titan Peak, started a small studio, trying to make something work. You left. William's grip was firm. His brow furrowed.
When?
What happened? Does Stephen know? A few months ago. Lucas kept his tone even. Strategic realignment. My capabilities were no longer a fit. They let me go. William snorted. He sat down and leaned back, studying Lucas. Come on. We've known each other too long for corporate speech. I know what you can do. That system you built for us? Still running. Stable as concrete. 3 different engineers who took over after you left have told me the architecture is solid. Titan Peak cut you? That's self-sabotage. The bluntness was almost refreshing. Past is past, Lucas said. You said you read our articles? You're interested in what we're building. William's expression shifted. Business mode.
Yes.
Those pieces you wrote, especially the parts about inventory forecasting for mid-sized distributors and real-time supplier reconciliation. You nailed it. He let out a heavy breath. Lucas, my company is scaling fast. More brands, more distribution channels, more retail endpoints, and our management systems are chaos. He started ticking problems off on his fingers. Inventory. 10 warehouses. Numbers match maybe 8 out of 10 times. One location runs out of stock, while another has pallets sitting for weeks. Moving product between them takes longer than ordering from the manufacturer. Supplier reconciliation is all spreadsheets and phone calls. Every month end, the finance and procurement teams are at each other's throats. And the small shop owners? They call me constantly.
Stock checks.
Promotions. Questions I don't have time to answer. He leaned forward. I know we need a system. I've looked at the big ERP and SRM vendors. Too expensive. Too bloated. Features we'll never use. Implementation timelines that would take forever and force us to change how we work. I don't have time for that.
He paused.
I also checked with Titan Peak. They're pushing something called Project Stellar now. Sounds like vaporware. Lucas kept his face neutral. But your articles, William continued. Those made sense. Lightweight. Pain point focused. Fast deployment. That's what I need. So I tracked down the author of the Arc Intelligence posts.
He spread his hands.
And here you are. Here I am. So, William's voice dropped. His eyes were sharp. We're old colleagues. I trust your work. I trust your character. Tell me straight. How real is this ARC system? Can it fix my problems? If the answer is yes, we can talk numbers. Lucas's pulse accelerated. This was not Cole's cousin's clothing workshop. Raylan was a real company. Hundreds of downstream retail partners. 9-figure annual revenue. If ARC landed them as a flagship client, it wouldn't just be revenue. It would be validation. Proof that their product direction was right. A launch pad back into the market. He forced himself to stay calm. He pulled his laptop from his bag and opened the prototype they'd been refining for weeks. William, let me show you our approach. He walked him through the interface. He didn't pitch a grand vision. He talked about 3 core problems. First, real-time multi-channel inventory sync with intelligent low-stock alerts.
Second,
A supplier collaboration portal. Orders, shipments, reconciliation. All online. All transparent. Third, a lightweight app for your downstream partners. They check their own stock. Place orders. View promotions. Simple enough that anyone can use it. He clicked through screens. Rough edges. Placeholder text. But the logic was clear. The bones were solid. William asked questions. Hard ones. Specific ones. Lucas answered them all. The months they'd spent buried in his cousin's factory and the coffee shop had taught them things no boardroom pitch could. Every answer hit a real operational nerve. 2 hours passed. 3 coffees. Finally, William sat back. His fingers drummed the table. How long? He asked. If I commit as your first client, maybe your angel client, how long until you can give me a version I can actually use? Core functions. Real workflow. Lucas took a breath. 3 months. But we'd need deep access. Our product and engineering people would have to embed with your teams. Understand every detail. This would be a partnership. William was silent for a long moment. Then he smacked the table. Done. People at nearby tables jumped. William didn't care. 3 months. I'll have legal and finance draft the contract. 30% upfront to fund development. He grabbed Lucas's hand and shook it hard. I'm trusting you, Lucas. Your skills. Your integrity. Don't let me down. I've been in this industry 20 years. I hate being lied to more than anything. You deliver, I'll pay. And I'll sing your praises to everyone in my network. You fail. He didn't finish.
he didn't need to.
We won't fail, Lucas said. ARC's first passenger is going to be you, William. If this ship sinks, I go down with it. Lucas stepped out of the coffee shop into the evening. The city was lighting up. Street lamps.
Headlights.
Office towers glowing against the dark sky. His phone buzzed.
Group chat. Cole.
How did it go? Is this guy legit? Need backup? Lucas looked at the message. Then he looked across the skyline, toward the building where Titan Peak's offices still hummed with light. He typed back. Meeting's over. Everyone back to base.
Now.
We got our first client. Raylan Trading. Get ready. The next 3 months are going to be war. He put his phone in his pocket. He didn't look back at the Titan Peak Tower again. He didn't need to. From this moment, the road was his. The upfront payment from Raylan hit their account on a Tuesday morning. Lucas and the team gathered around a laptop in the apartment, staring at the number on the screen. It wasn't huge, but it was enough. Enough to cover rent. Enough to buy time. Enough to prove that someone believed in what they were building. Lucas raised a can of soda. No more safety net. No more backup plans. 3 months. We deliver or we're done. Cole chugged half his can in one go and belched. Let's go. Those bastards at Titan Peak are about to find out who's really incompetent. Felix was already typing. Oliver grabbed a marker and started sketching Raylan's business flow on the whiteboard. Inventory sync has to be sub-second real-time. Supplier portal interface compatibility is going to be a nightmare. The downstream app needs to be so simple that someone who can barely use a smartphone can figure it out in 10 minutes.
The war began.
They practically lived in that apartment. Air mattresses weren't enough. Sleeping bags. Takeout containers piled up like sandbags. The air tasted of caffeine and sweat. Lucas, Cole, and Felix rotated through Raylan's offices. They followed purchasing agents on warehouse runs. They sat with finance teams during reconciliation hell weeks. They crouched in small retail shops, watching owners fumble with their phones, taking orders, counting stock. They annoyed William's entire staff with endless questions. But every detail they gathered made Ark sharper, more grounded, more real. Oliver became a tyrant of user experience. He tested the app on his mother, a woman who used her smartphone for exactly two things: messaging and mobile payments. When she could navigate the inventory interface without asking questions, Oliver declared it ready. Meanwhile, fragments of news drifted in from Titan Peak. Project Stellar had launched. Big ceremony. New office space. Hiring spree. Marcus was everywhere. Press releases. Conference panels. Stephen Joe had given him a massive budget and full backing. Then the rumors started. More people from Lucas's old team had quit. The new director, Marcus's operations buddy, had caused several embarrassing technical incidents. They'd been buried. Quietly. But the engineers knew. The clients were starting to notice. Someone told Lucas that Titan Peak had tried approaching Raylan. They wanted to pitch a stellar submodule. William had shut the door in their faces. That flashy garbage. William told Lucas later, "They tried to sell me the future. I told them I already found a partner who builds things that actually work." Every update from the old company felt like a gift. But Lucas didn't have time to savor them. Rage had been replaced by something more useful. Focus. The 3 months reshaped them. Not just the product, the people. Lucas became a product manager and project leader and salesperson all at once. Cole grew into technical leadership. Felix solved concurrency problems that would have stumped most senior architects. Oliver became obsessive about the distance between a user's intention and the screen's response. 87 days in, 3 in the morning, the apartment was silent except for fans and keyboards. Felix pushed his glasses up. Full core workflow stress test passed. Response times and error rates within target. Oliver handed Lucas his phone. His eyes were bloodshot. 27 iterations. I had my mom test this one. She figured it out. Cole slumped in his chair. Backend management interface bugs cleared. Supplier portal 2. Permission system and logging are solid. Lucas stared at the monitoring dashboard on his screen. Stable. All green. He stood. His vision swam for a second. Guys, Arc Beta 1.0 is done. No one cheered. They were too exhausted. Cole muttered something about presenting to William tomorrow and fell asleep mid-sentence. Felix and Oliver collapsed right after. Lucas did one final check. Set up the demo environment. Scheduled the email with test accounts and documentation. Sent it to William. Then he found a corner of the floor and was unconscious within seconds. The phone woke them all. Sunlight. Harsh. No idea what time it was. William's voice exploded through the speaker. Lucas, I tested it. My operations guys tested it. This is it. This is exactly what I needed. His excitement was palpable even through the cheap phone speaker. The inventory sync. The alerts. One of my worst warehouses actually matched its numbers for the first time in years. And the supplier portal. One of my biggest vendors called to tell me it was the clearest reconciliation he'd ever seen. When can you deploy for real? Lucas looked at his team. Dirty faces. Tired eyes. Grins starting to spread. This afternoon, William. We'll bring the production version and start deployment. Good. Good. William paused. His tone shifted. Oh, one more thing. You'll appreciate this. Titan Peak called again. That Marcus guy. Heard I was upgrading systems. Wanted to pitch Stellar again. Guess what I told him? They held their breath. William laughed. Loud. A bark of pure satisfaction. I said, thanks, but I already found the best partner out there. They do solid work. Real results. As for your Stellar thing, maybe you should figure out your own internal management before you try selling it to anyone else. He was still laughing. You should have heard the silence on the other end. Must have been beautiful. The call ended. The apartment was quiet. Then Cole snorted. Then Oliver. Then all 4 of them were laughing. Bent over.
Tears.
The kind of laughter that comes after too much pressure held for too long. It washed away 3 months of exhaustion. Lucas wiped his face.
Shower.
Clean clothes. We're going to show our first real client what we built. Cole cracked his knuckles. And then, I got a feeling the show with Titan Peak is just getting started. Deployment at Raylan went better than anyone expected. The months of groundwork paid off. They knew the business processes better than some of William's own staff. William backed them completely. He personally overruled a few old guard employees who resisted changing their habits. 1 month later, the system was fully operational. The results were immediate. Inventory accuracy jumped from under 70% to over 98%. Cross-warehouse transfers happened in hours instead of days. Month-end financial reconciliation went from an 8-day nightmare to less than 2. Downstream shop owners love the app. Simple.
Fast.
Saves them time. William was ecstatic. He paid the remaining balance without a hint of resistance. And true to his word, he started talking. Dinners. Industry gatherings. Phone calls to other business owners. He became ARC's most passionate evangelist. Don't look at me like I'm selling something, he'd tell other executives. I'm telling you what worked. This system fixes real problems. Not like that fancy crap the big vendors push. The word spread. Inquiries started coming in. Small companies at first, then medium ones. Every new deployment brought revenue. More importantly, it brought deeper industry knowledge. They were building a reputation, one client at a time. They moved out of the apartment, rented a small office in a nondescript downtown building, hired their first non-engineering staff, an administrative assistant, a finance person, 2 fresh graduates to handle support. Cole, Felix, and Oliver took on bigger roles. Head of engineering, head of product, head of design. Titles didn't matter much yet. The work did. For the first time in a long time, things felt steady. And then Lucas's phone rang. He almost didn't recognize the number. Something about it nagged at him. A faint familiarity. He answered. Arc Intelligence. Lucas Chun. Silence. 2 seconds. Then a voice he hadn't heard since the day he'd walked out of the conference room with a cardboard box in his arms. Lucas. It's Stephen Joe. Lucas's spine straightened. His grip on the phone tightened. Stephen. He kept his voice flat. It's been a while. It has. Stephen's tone was tired, but underneath was the same careful, measured quality Lucas remembered. The voice of a man who always had an angle. I've been hearing things. You started your own company. Doing well, from what I understand. The Raylan partnership seems to be going strong. So the news had reached him. Not surprising. The business community wasn't that big. And William had made sure to spread his opinion of Titan Peak far and wide. We're getting by, Lucas said. Small operation. Nothing compared to Titan Peak. Stephen let out a soft laugh. You're being modest. I always appreciated that about you. A pause. Lucas, I know things ended poorly. The company had its challenges. Marcus made some decisions that were too aggressive.
I've spoken to him about it.
But regardless of what happened, your 7 years at Titan Peak mattered. I've always valued what you brought to the table. Lucas didn't respond. He waited. He knew this wasn't a social call. Stephen cleared his throat. The reason I'm calling is that I think there's an opportunity here. For both of us. A collaboration. Lucas's eyebrow rose. As you probably know, Titan Peak is heavily invested in Project Stellar. Next-generation enterprise platform. Big vision. We're building something that could reshape the industry. Stephen's voice picked up energy. The old blueprint painter's rhythm. Your ARC system has a strong niche. Good product market fit in the SMB supply chain space. But it's narrow. Growth ceiling. Titan Peak has the brand, the funding, the channel, the customer base.
He paused.
Lucas could almost hear him leaning forward. I'm thinking we could collaborate. Strategic investment. Or maybe a deeper integration. Fold ARC into Stellar as the supply chain module. You come back with your team. I'll give you a VP title, full ownership of the product line, access to all of Titan Peak's resources. We scale ARC together, make it the industry standard, faster than you could do alone, safer too. Lucas let the words hang in the air. Strategic investment, integration, VP title. He almost laughed. 3 months ago, he'd been garbage, an obstacle. Capabilities do not meet requirements. And now they wanted him back, wanted to absorb what he'd built. He could see the play clearly. Titan Peak was watching a small, agile competitor gain traction in a space Stellar couldn't touch. They wanted to buy the threat, neutralize it, or swallow it and let it suffocate inside their bloated organization. Bring ARC under Marcus's shadow? Let it get cannibalized for parts? Watch the team he'd built get scattered across a failing megaproject? Stephen. Lucas's voice was calm, almost gentle. I appreciate the call and the offer, but ARC is like a child to us. We raised it from nothing. We want to see it grow on its own terms. We're not looking for strategic investment or acquisition right now. He paused. Let the next words land. As for coming back to Titan Peak, I don't think that makes sense. I was told my capabilities were insufficient. I'd hate to drag the company down again. Silence. Long, heavy. Stephen's breathing had changed. When he spoke again, the warmth was gone, replaced by something colder, harder. Lucas, confidence is good, but you need to understand the realities of the market. Small teams don't survive alone. Titan Peak can offer you more than you realize, and it can take away more than you think. Think carefully. There it was, the mask slipping. Lucas smiled, a thin, quiet smile of final release. I've thought about it enough, Stephen. My answer stands. If there's nothing else, I have a client waiting. He hung up before Stephen could respond. Lucas stood by the office window, watching traffic below. Stephen's last words sat in his mind like a cold draft. A threat, barely veiled. Titan Peak knew about ARC now. They saw the momentum. They wouldn't ignore it. He turned back to the open office. Cole was reviewing code. Felix and Oliver were in a design discussion. Everyone. Quick meeting. They gathered around. Lucas relayed the call. Cole exploded. By us? Bring us back to work under his idiot nephew? Is he insane? We're building something real, and he wants to swallow it whole. Felix's jaw was tight. That last line. Take away more than you think. That's a direct threat. Titan Peak's bigger than us. They could undercut us on price. Use their existing client relationships against us. Oliver nodded. We don't have the resources for a price war. If they come after our clients hard, are you scared?
Lucas asked.
Hell no, Cole said. Cautious, Felix said. Not scared. Worried enough to plan, Oliver said. Lucas looked at them. Stephen's call means we've crossed a line. We're on their radar. They see us as a threat. The next phase is going to be harder. More direct competition. Titan Peak is probably just the first.
He paused.
But that's good. It means we can't coast. Can't settle for small wins. We push harder. Build a stronger product. Lock in our client relationships. And we start hunting bigger game. He walked to the whiteboard and wrote a name. Everyone in the room recognized it. A household name in retail. Hundreds of stores across the province. Supermarkets. Convenience chains. An enormous, tangled supply chain. They'd been trying to digitize for years. No one had cracked it yet. Prime Mart, Lucas said. William is hosting a dinner next week. Several executives at his level will be there, including Prime Mart's VP of Supply Chain.
He circled the name.
This is our chance. And our biggest test. Land Prime Mart. Even a pilot program, and Titan Peak's threats become noise. He faced them. Fail. And we hit our ceiling early. Maybe give Titan Peak the opening they're looking for. The room fell silent. But no one looked afraid. They looked ready. The dinner was at an upscale private restaurant. The kind of place with unmarked doors, private rooms, and menus that didn't list prices. William played host. 6 guests. Lucas was the only tech founder at the table. The others were heavy hitters in the distribution and retail world. The man Lucas needed to impress was Richard Shin, Primart's VP of supply chain, mid-50s.
Fit.
Quiet. Eyes that missed nothing. He'd built his career on the operations floor. He didn't trust slide decks. When William introduced Lucas and explained what ARC had done for Raylan, Richard only nodded. Polite. Non-committal. The dinner flowed.
Wine.
Industry gossip. Policy talk. Lucas didn't push. He listened. Asked the occasional question. When the conversation turned to supply chain headaches, he offered concrete examples from Raylan and other clients. Specific numbers. Real results. No exaggeration. No buzzwords. Eventually, Richard set down his glass and turned to Lucas directly. William's been singing your praises all evening. Your system clearly works for a distributor like Raylan, but Primart is a different animal. He described their reality. Hundreds of stores, multiple cities, thousands of product categories, a supplier network that ranged from national brands to tiny local producers. Store-level ordering was chaotic. Central and regional warehouses couldn't coordinate efficiently. Fresh produce and perishables were a constant hemorrhage of loss. Supplier communication was stuck in the age of faxes and phone calls. We've looked at the big vendors, Richard said. Too expensive.
Too slow to implement.
Too rigid for how we actually operate. We don't need an aircraft carrier. We need a fast, precise surgical team. Something that solves actual problems, shows results fast, and adapts to our different regions and formats. Most importantly, it can't fail. Our daily revenue can't survive system crashes. Every word landed like a key in a lock. Lucas didn't pitch a product. He asked questions. What were the ordering patterns across different store types? Where exactly did perishable losses concentrate? What did communication with different supplier tiers actually look like? His questions were specific, technical, the kind only someone who'd spent months knee-deep in real operations would think to ask. Richard's eyes changed. The guarded assessment softened. Richard. Lucas set his napkin aside. You've described the exact challenges ARC was built to solve. We don't do aircraft carriers. We do modular, fast response systems. He sketched the approach. No laptop, just words. Start with the biggest pain point. Say fresh produce ordering and waste reduction. Use historical sales data, weather, promotions to generate dynamic ordering suggestions per store. Full cold chain monitoring from supplier to central warehouse to store shelf. Small pilot. Quick validation. At the same time, open a collaboration portal for your most critical suppliers. Orders, logistics, reconciliation, all digital, all transparent. These 2 modules run independently. They can also integrate. Prove the results in one region, then scale. Stability and resilience are our foundation. ARC's architecture is designed for high availability and elastic scaling. We can deploy in a non-critical segment first. Contain the risk. Richard listened. His fingers rotated his wine glass slowly. William leaned in. Richard, Lucas is the real thing. They don't do vapor. They build in the trenches. My company runs on their system now. I sleep better. Another executive at the table nodded. Most software companies talk concepts. Finding someone who actually understands operations is rare. Richard was quiet for a moment longer. Then he spoke. Interesting. Next Monday, bring your core team to our headquarters. Present to my directors of procurement, logistics, store operations, and IT. No slide decks. Just walk us through how you would actually solve our problems. In detail.
Can you do that?
We'll be there, Lucas said. They worked through the weekend. Barely slept. They took everything they'd learned from Richard and from William's network. Combined it with every piece of public data on Primart. Simulated every question they might face. Every objection. Every hidden concern. Monday morning, 9 o'clock, Primark headquarters. The conference room held almost 20 people. Richard Shun, directors, senior managers. Faces ranged from curious to openly skeptical. Richard opened without preamble. Mr. Chen, we have limited time. Please begin. Lucas stood. He didn't open his laptop. He walked to the whiteboard. Before any solution, let me describe how we understand your current challenges. He started mapping. Store ordering unpredictability. Multi-tier warehouse lag. Supplier communication gaps. Each point drew nods from people who hadn't nodded at anything in years. Then Cole, Felix, and Oliver took over. Technical architecture.
Module design.
Feature demos. User experience. Every function tied to a specific pain point. Every technical decision explained in business terms. The questions came like artillery fire. The logistics director challenged real-time sync performance across hundreds of stores. Felix answered with stress test data and a layered sync mechanism. The IT director worried about integration with their legacy ERP. Cole laid out middleware options and pros and cons. The procurement director doubted suppliers would adopt new tools. Oliver showed the simplified interface they'd built for Raylan's vendors and the training support model. Sharp questions, some hostile, designed to make them fail. They didn't fail. The months of real-world deployment had hardened them. Raylan, the small clothing factory, the coffee shop, the other clients. Every battle had added a layer of armor. They answered without dodging, admitted where they needed Primark's cooperation, offered clear paths and backup plans. 2.5 hours. When it ended, the room was quiet. Richard Shun looked at his team. The hostile faces had softened. Not friendly, but thoughtful. Reassessing. Your team is more solid than I expected. Richard's voice carried a hint of approval. The approach has merit. However, this is a major decision. We'll need to evaluate internally. Prepare a detailed proposal. Implementation roadmap. Pricing. First phase pilot scope and targets. Deliver it this week. We will, Lucas said. They left the building into midday sun. Cole exhaled like a diver surfacing. That was harder than any final exam I ever took. Some of those directors had knives in their eyes. Felix rubbed his jaw, but they asked real questions. That means they listened.
They're thinking about it.
Oliver was already planning. Proposal framework needs to be tight. The pilot has to feel like a no-brainer. Low risk, high visibility payoff. Lucas looked back at the Primark tower. They had a shot, not a guarantee. Nothing ever was. But the door was open. Let's go. The proposal won't write itself. 3 days into preparing the Primark proposal, Lucas's phone rang. William. His voice was tight with anger. Lucas, we have a problem. Titan Peak got their hands on details about our partnership. They know the rough shape of ARC's capabilities. They're reaching out to my downstream distributors, my key suppliers, everyone. Lucas's blood chilled. They're offering nearly free pilots of their stellar modules, supply chain stuff, and they're whispering, telling people ARC is a tiny startup, and proven tech, no long-term support, might fold in 6 months. Why risk it when you can go with an established brand? William was furious. It's a flanking attack. They're trying to hollow out my ecosystem, undermine our results. If my partners start switching, even on a trial basis, ARC's value proposition in our case study gets gutted. Lucas gripped the phone. The move was brutal and smart. They weren't attacking Raylan directly. They were hitting the edges. The distributors and suppliers whose participation made ARC's network effect work. If those nodes peeled away, the whole case study would start looking fragile. And every prospective client, including Primark, would notice. I understand, William. Give me a few hours. I'll call you back with a plan. Lucas hung up and gathered the team. Cole was pacing. Joe and his attack dog. They're desperate. They see us closing in on Primark. They're trying to cut us off at the knees before we get there. Felix was already thinking, we can't fight a price war. We don't have the cash. If they're giving stuff away for free, some of those small distributors will take it just to try. Oliver looked at Lucas. We're stretched thin. Primark proposal is all-consuming. Now we're fighting on a second front. Lucas forced stillness. He pulled up the Raylan relationship map. Distributors. Suppliers. Everything they'd built. Okay, listen. Titan Peak's move tells us something. They're scared. If we weren't a threat, they wouldn't be burning resources trying to strangle us. That's confirmation we're on the right path. He leaned forward. They have brand and money. Their weakness is product. Stellar is a mess. Even free, it won't solve these people's problems. It'll frustrate them, waste their time. We don't win by lowering our price. We win by raising our value. He laid out the counter. First, call William. Ask him to convene a meeting, not a defensive one. Frame it as a collaborative growth workshop. Get all the partners Titan Peak is targeting in one virtual room. We present 2 new lightweight features we've been prototyping. One-click dropship for distributors. Capacity presale for suppliers. Real tools that make them money or save them time. We announced these as exclusive early access benefits for the existing Raylan partner network. Deepen the integration. Give them reasons to stay that go beyond software. Second, Felix, you lead a skunkworks sprint. Build working prototypes of those features. 2 weeks. Functional enough to demo. Make them feel real. Third, Primark proposal stays priority 1. Cole and Oliver, you own it. I need it to be undeniable. That's our strategic weapon. Land Primark and Titan Peak's little sabotage campaign becomes a joke. Cole's eyes lit up. We're not just defending, we're counterattacking. Always, Lucas said. The workshop happened the following Friday. William opened strong, data-driven. Here's what ARC did for us. Here's the measurable impact. Then he addressed the elephant. I hear some of you have been approached. Free trials. Big promises. Let me tell you something about free. Free is never free. It's a hook. When it fails, and it will fail, the cost comes out of your operations, your margins, your customer relationships. Then Lucas presented. He didn't mention Titan Peak. Not once. He talked about the future. How deeper integration could reduce inventory financing costs for distributors. How predictive sharing could help suppliers optimize production runs. Then he demoed the new features. Rough. Functional. Targeted exactly at the pain points he knew they felt every day. Heads nodded. Questions came. Interest sparked. William closed it. I'm putting my weight behind Arkansas. That means when there are new tools, new opportunities, this network gets priority access. We're building something together. Those outside options? You don't know those people. I know Lucas. I trust his team. Your call. Afterward, several partners who'd been approached by Titan Peak reached out privately. They weren't leaving. Sunday night, Lucas's phone rang. Richard Shun. Mr. Chen. I've reviewed your proposal. The phased approach. The pilot structure. The risk controls. It's practical. Aligned with our needs. Lucas held his breath. However, this can't be my decision alone. Wednesday, executive review. Our CEO, CFO, senior leadership. You'll present and defend your proposal. Final round. He paused. You should know, there are other contenders. Titan Peak submitted, and they've been working their connections. The room won't be friendly. Be ready. Titan Peak. Of course. We'll be ready, Lucas said. He relayed the news. The brief relief evaporated, replaced by something sharper. This was the summit. Wednesday, Primark's executive boardroom versus their old masters. Winner would determine everything. Wednesday arrived like a deadline, and a verdict rolled into one. Primark's executive boardroom occupied the entire top floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows looked out over the city. The table could seat 30. Today it held fewer, but the weight in the room was heavier. On one side sat Primart's leadership, Chairman and CEO David Chen, a man in his 60s with the stillness of someone who had built an empire from nothing and didn't need to prove it. Beside him, CFO Catherine Nguyen, sharp-eyed and analytical. Richard Shun, the directors of procurement, logistics, IT. Their faces were composed, impassive, waiting. On the other side of the table sat Titan Peak's delegation. Marcus Zhao led them. His suit probably cost more than ARC's monthly burn rate. Beside him was a sales director Lucas vaguely recognized, along with two assistants who were already setting up presentation equipment. Marcus caught Lucas's eye as he entered. A tiny smile flickered at the corner of his mouth. The smile of a man who believed the outcome was already decided. Lucas and his team took their seats without acknowledging him. Richard Shun called the session to order. He explained the format. Each team would present.
Questions would follow.
The board would deliberate afterward. Order determined by random draw. ARC went first. Lucas walked to the front. The projection screen lit up with their proposal title. No grand promises. Just a clear statement of intent. From pain points to partnership, ARC Intelligence's practical roadmap for Primart's supply chain transformation. Chairman Chen, Ms. Wen, Mr. Shen, directors. Lucas's voice was steady. He'd learned long ago that the best presentations weren't performances. They were conversations with stakes. Before I show you our solution, let me share what we've learned about your current reality. He switched to a slide that displayed numbers. Estimates based on their research and industry benchmarks. The potential margin loss from perishable spoilage. The working capital trapped in slow inventory turns. The operational cost of manual supplier reconciliation. The numbers were stark, quantified, personal to Primart's bottom line. David Chen's expression didn't change, but his gaze sharpened. These are not abstract problems, Lucas continued. They're daily losses. Friction that slows down everything you do. ARC doesn't promise a magical all-in-one future platform. We propose a focused, phased approach to stop the bleeding first. Then optimize. Then scale. Cole, Felix, and Oliver presented in sequence. They showed the module structure, how each feature mapped to a specific pain point Lucas had identified. The pilot design, 80 stores in the eastern region, fresh produce management, and key supplier collaboration. Clear scope, clear timeline, clear success metrics. They showed the interface mock-ups. The supplier portal designed for people who barely used email. The store-level app a part-time cashier could learn in minutes. They walked through a simulated scenario where a store's produce order was automatically adjusted based on a weather alert, reducing waste before it happened. When they finished, the questions began. Catherine went straight to the numbers. Your pricing model. Explain the phased investment structure. How do we control costs if the pilot expands? Lucas had prepared for this. He walked through the modular pricing tied to deployment phases. Fixed pilot cost. Performance-based milestones for expansion. No massive upfront platform license. No hidden fees. She wrote something down. The IT director asked about integration with their legacy ERP. Felix gave a technical answer that was precise without being evasive. Middleware options. Data mapping. Fallback procedures if something failed. The logistics director asked about real-time inventory accuracy guarantees. Cole answered with data from their Raylan deployment and the layered sync architecture. Question after question. Sharp. Specific. They answered each one directly. When they didn't know something, they said so and offered a path to find out. Then it was Titan Peak's turn. Marcus stood. His presentation was slick. Animated transitions. Grand vision statements. The slides spoke of a comprehensive intelligent retail operating system. A unified platform. AI-powered. Cloud-native. End-to-end digital transformation. His voice was practiced. Energetic. Project Stellar is not just a supply chain tool. It's a full ecosystem. Member management. Marketing automation. Data middle platform. True omni-channel capability. We're offering a strategic partnership, not just software, a future. He painted a picture of seamless integration. Everything connected, everything intelligent. Then David Chen spoke for the first time. Mr. Zhao, our most pressing issue right now is fresh produce loss and supplier coordination. If we were to pilot Stellar tomorrow in one region, what would that look like? Specifically, timeline, team size. How quickly would we see measurable impact? Marcus's rhythm faltered, just slightly. He talked about the platform's configurability, its foundational capabilities, how the system could be adapted. The sales director jumped in to add details. But the answer wasn't sharp. It was broad, flexible, unanchored. Richard Shin followed up. If we pilot in 100 Eastern Region stores, how many people from your implementation team would be on site? What's the estimated timeline to full operational integration? Marcus's numbers were higher than ARC's. People,
Time.
disruption risk. He explained it was necessary due to the platform's comprehensive integration requirements. Catherine would ask the final question. Total cost, full platform, and the pilot phase. Marcus gave the number. A ripple went through the room. Not audible, visible. Catherine's pen stopped moving. Richard's jaw tightened slightly. Marcus tried to frame it. Long-term value, unlimited future upgrades, strategic partnership benefits. The air had changed. Lucas could feel it. The room had been skeptical. Now it was something else. Cooler, more distant. Titan Peak had offered them an expensive ticket to an uncertain future. ARC had offered a focused, cost-controlled plan to fix the problems bleeding them today. The session ended. David Chen announced a recess for internal discussion. The two teams were escorted to separate waiting rooms. ARC's room was quiet. Cole sat with his elbows on his knees, staring at the floor. Felix was motionless. Oliver kept tapping his fingers against his thigh.
Lucas didn't speak.
He'd done everything he could. They all had. The proposal was solid. The presentation was clean. The questions had been answered. Now it was out of their hands. Minutes stretched. The door opened. A young assistant. Mr. Chen. Chairman Chen would like to see you and your team. Only them. They walked back into the boardroom. David Chen. Catherine Won. Richard Shun. No one else. Sit down, David Chen said. His voice was calm. Unreadable. We've reviewed both proposals. Yours is pragmatic. Focused. The risk controls are well considered. The phased pilot with performance-based expansion fits how we prefer to operate. Lucas felt his pulse rising. Retail is built on execution, not slides. David Chen's eyes were steady. We need a partner who can solve problems immediately and deliver value, not someone who requires us to adapt to a massive, expensive platform before we see results. He glanced at Catherine. She nodded. He glanced at Richard. Same. The decision is made. ARC will be our Phase 1 partner for supply chain digitization. Eastern Region. 80 stores. Fresh produce and supplier collaboration pilot. Contract details to be finalized by Richard and Catherine's office. The words landed like a physical wave. Cole made a sound that was half laugh, half choke. Felix's fists clenched under the table. Oliver exhaled a breath that seemed to empty his entire body. Lucas stood. He bowed slightly. When he spoke, his voice was controlled. But underneath was something that had been held back for a very long time. Thank you, Chairman Chen. Ms. Wen, Mr. Shen, we will not let you down. I believe you won't, David Chen said. This pilot matters to Primart. I suspect it matters even more to Arkansas Deliver. There will be much larger opportunities ahead. Fail. He didn't need to finish. We understand, Lucas said. They left the boardroom. At the elevator bank, they found Marcus Zhao and his team emerging from their own waiting room. Marcus saw them, saw the assistant who was escorting them out with quiet courtesy, saw something in Lucas's expression. His face went through a rapid sequence. Confusion, realization, then a dark, contorting anger that he couldn't fully suppress. He opened his mouth. Nothing came out. He stared at Lucas with a look of pure, concentrated venom. Then he turned sharply and led his people toward the far elevator. His back was rigid. His footsteps were hard. The ARC team's elevator arrived. Doors closed. Silence. Then Cole erupted. Yes. He punched the air. Felix slammed his palm against the elevator wall. Oliver leaned back and covered his face with both hands, laughing. Lucas looked at them and smiled. It was the first truly unguarded smile he'd felt in months. They had won, not through connections, not through empty promises, through deep understanding of a client's problems, through a product built in the trenches, through a team that had refused to break. The elevator descended. The weight didn't disappear, but it shifted. It was no longer the weight of survival. It was the weight of a door opening. Outside the building, the afternoon sun was bright. Lucas pulled out his phone. One message to William. Primart pilot is ours. Thank you for everything. William called back within seconds. I knew it. Lucas, this is huge. Huge. Forget tonight. We're celebrating this weekend. My treat. My place. I'm opening the good wine. Lucas laughed. For the first time in a long time, it came easily. He looked at his team. Let's go. The real work starts now. He didn't know yet what was waiting around the next corner. The twist that would take everything they'd just achieved and set it on a course none of them could have predicted. The Primart pilot contract was signed within 2 weeks. The upfront payment hit their account. ARC's team split into 2 units. Lucas and Felix embedded with Primart's Eastern region operations. Cole and Oliver held the home base, supporting existing clients and driving product improvements. The pilot was supposed to be hard. It was harder. 80 stores meant 80 different store managers with 80 different opinions. Legacy processes that had calcified over decades. Suppliers who distrusted any system that smelled of change. Technical integration with Primart's ancient but unkillable ERP was like performing surgery on a patient who refused anesthesia. But they had prepared for this. The months in warehouses. The late nights decoding real workflows. Every prior client engagement had been training for this scale of complexity. 3 months into the pilot, the midpoint review was called. Richard Shun's team compiled the numbers. Lucas presented them to the Primart leadership. Fresh produce loss across pilot stores was down nearly 6%. Inventory turnover had accelerated measurably. The supplier portal had onboarded their first 12 key partners. Reconciliation time was down. Order accuracy was up. Richard Shun publicly called the pilot a clear success with demonstrable impact. The room applauded. Lucas felt the shift. It wasn't just approval. It was trust.
Hard one. Permanent.
He was in the middle of a planning session for the next phase of Primart's rollout when his phone buzzed. Richard Shun.
Personal line.
Lucas, can you come to headquarters immediately? Chairman Shun needs to see you. It's about Titan Peak. The name hit him like a splash of cold water. He handed the meeting to Felix and took a car across the city. David Chen's office was large but sparse. No ostentation. The man himself sat behind a desk that had probably been with him since the company's first office. Richard Shun was already there. And Catherine won. Sit down, Lucas. David Chun wasted no time. We have information that affects you directly. Catherine adjusted her glasses. Titan Peak Technologies is in serious trouble. We received confirmed reports. Their Project Stellar suffered a catastrophic system failure during deployment for a major client. The client's core operations were paralyzed for over 24 hours. Significant financial losses. Lawsuits are being filed. Lucas listened. His face stayed still. Additionally, Catherine continued, internal audits have revealed massive budget overruns on Project Stellar. Management irregularities. Possible misconduct. The news is being contained for now, but it's spreading in investment circles and among select clients. Titan Peak stock went into freefall this morning. Richard took over. The crisis is forcing them to liquidate assets.
Fast.
One of the projects on the chopping block is a troubled deployment for a company called Shuanghui Group, a large manufacturing conglomerate. Titan Peak had promised them a custom solution. The project is now stalled, disputed, mired in litigation threats. Chuanghui's operations have been directly damaged. David Chun leaned forward. Chuanghui's chairman is an old friend.
He called me.
He's desperate. He needs someone to salvage this disaster, restore systems, stabilize operations. He heard about our partnership with Arkansas. His exact words were, "If they can fix this, money is not an issue, and there will be much more work to come." The room was silent. David Chen's gaze didn't waver. "This is a mess, Lucas. Technical debt, hostile client relationship, possibly legal exposure. Taking it on could drain you. But Chuanghui is larger than Primart. Their operations are more complex. If you succeed, ARC's reputation changes overnight. You stop being a promising startup. You become the team that handles what established players cannot. The decision is yours. We can facilitate an introduction. The rest is your judgment." Lucas sat motionless. The news was staggering. Titan Peak was imploding. The Project Stellar, that was supposed to reshape the industry, had become a company-killing disaster. Marcus Zhao's grand vision was a pile of lawsuits and crashing stock prices. And now they were being offered the chance to clean up Titan Peak's wreckage, to walk onto a battlefield their old masters had abandoned and save the client they had betrayed. The irony was so sharp it could cut, but the risks were real. Technical unknowns, legal complications, the sheer drain on a team already stretched by Primart's expansion. If they failed, the damage to ARC's reputation could be severe. "I need to talk to my team," Lucas said. "And I'd like to meet with Chuanghui's people as soon as possible. Understand the scope. Then I'll give you an answer." David Chin nodded. Approval flickered in his eyes. "Good. That's the right approach. Richard will arrange the introduction." The initial meeting with Chuanghui Group felt like walking into a crime scene. Their IT director was a man named Zheng. Deep-eye bags, exhausted voice, barely contained fury simmering beneath every word. He walked them through the disaster. Titan Peak had overpromised from day one. The project scope kept shifting. Project managers rotated every few months. The delivered code was riddled with bugs. Then came the major upgrade that was supposed to integrate everything. It crashed their core production scheduling and materials management systems. Production lines stopped. Orders were delayed. Financial damages climbed into the millions. "Our requirements now are simple," Zheng said. His voice was flat.
1.
"Restore basic system operation immediately. Production cannot stop again.
2.
Full audit of the existing system. Honest assessment. Remediation plan. 3. The new team must be absolutely professional. Reliable. No more disasters. We cannot afford another failure." Lucas's team received partial access to the codebase. Felix and their most senior architect worked through the night on an initial review. The conclusion was brutal. The architecture was a disaster. A patchwork of outdated frameworks, contradictory design patterns, critical logic sections with zero documentation, security vulnerabilities everywhere. It was a museum of bad decisions.
But
The core business logic wasn't impossibly complex. The problem wasn't the requirements. It was the execution. Sloppy engineering. No quality control. A team that didn't care. If ARC concentrated its best people, they could stabilize the critical functions.
Triad.
Surgical repair. Then plan a full rebuild. Lucas gathered his core team. The debate was intense. The case against was strong. Primart pilot expansion was in a delicate phase. Splitting focus could endanger everything. Legacy rescue projects were notorious for scope creep and hidden disasters. The team could burn out. The case for was stronger. This was a once-in-a-career opportunity, not just a client win. A statement. The company that fired Lucas Chun for inadequate capabilities had left a trail of destruction. His team would clean it up.
Publicly.
Decisively. And PrimeMart was stable enough to shift some resources. They'd manage. Lucas made the call. We're doing it. Felix, your team keeps PrimeMart on track. That is non-negotiable.
Cole.
Oliver, you're with me. Plus our 2 best engineers who've handled legacy code. We form a SWAT unit. Mission: stop the bleeding at Chuanghui.
He looked at them.
We're going to win this. And when we do, everyone will know that the incompetent Team Titan Peak threw away is the one that saved their victims. The SWAT unit mobilized. They practically relocated to Chuanghui server room. Days blurred. They interviewed every department head, mapped the real business processes, traced through code that looked like it had been written by someone actively trying to cause harm. Sleep became a memory. 4 hours was a luxury, but there was a fire in all of them, a need to prove something, not just to the market,
To themselves.
13 days in. For in the morning, they found it, the core bug, a cascading failure in the transaction management layer. It was buried under layers of patches and temporary fixes. The kind of thing that someone should have caught in basic testing. The kind of thing that told you everything about how Titan Peak had run this project. Cole found a bypass. Felix remotely reviewed it. Lucas made the call. They deployed the fix at 5 in the morning, rolled back corrupted data, restarted core services. On the monitoring screen, the production scheduling module flickered, then steadied, then began processing normally for the first time in weeks. Zhang stood behind them. He watched the screen. His face didn't move for a long moment. Then his eyes reddened. He grabbed Lucas's hand and couldn't speak. Emergency stabilization was achieved. News traveled fast. While the Chuanghui SWAT unit pushed deeper into system audits and rebuild planning, PrimeMart held its quarterly pilot review. Richard Shen presented the results himself. Data points rolled out like a victory parade. Fresh produce lost down 5.7% across all pilot stores. Gross margins up. Supplier collaboration efficiency improved over 30%. Store manager satisfaction scores hit their highest level in 2 years. Then the announcement. The pilot was declared an unqualified success. ARC system would be rolled out to all 300 Eastern Region stores. Evaluation for Southern and Northern Region deployments would begin immediately. ARC was no longer a vendor. They were PrimeMart's long-term strategic partner. The double impact reverberated through the industry. Within weeks, ARC Intelligence was featured in trade publications. The dark horse of SMB supply chain digitization. How a startup is solving what the giants cannot. The Chuanghui rescue story started circulating. It sounded like legend. The team fired for incompetence returns to save the client their former employer nearly destroyed. Investment inquiries piled up. Lucas's assistant couldn't schedule meetings fast enough. But Lucas wasn't hungry anymore. He didn't need to take the first offer. He had choices now. And then, on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon, his desk phone rang. A number he recognized. Titan Peak's corporate line. The call was transferred, and a voice came through that Lucas barely recognized. Lucas, this is Stephen Zhou. The tone was hollow.
Aged.
The smooth confidence was gone. What remained sounded like a man who hadn't slept in weeks. I wanted to apologize. For how things ended. For how you were treated. I listened to people I shouldn't have. I made mistakes.
Lucas said nothing.
I also want to thank you for what you did at Chuanghui. Indirectly, you helped Titan Peak reduce some of its liability. That matters now. More than you know. A long pause. Lucas, Titan Peak is in serious trouble. Project Stellar's failure has cost us almost everything. Clients are leaving. The stock is worthless. We're fighting to survive. And we need partners. We need credibility. The next words came out with effort. I'm asking. Formally. Not acquisition. Not absorption. A strategic merger of equals. Or a deep partnership. You have the product. The reputation. The momentum. We still have our brand name. Some remaining distribution. Legacy clients who haven't left yet. We could complement each other. Lucas let the silence hang. Then he spoke. Stephen, I appreciate the call, but ARC has its own path. We're not looking to merge with anyone. We'd rather build our future with our own people, our own product, our own reputation. He paused. As for partnership, if there's a specific project where we can genuinely complement each other, on equal terms, built on trust, we're open. But right now, I think we both have more urgent things to handle. The silence on the other end was complete. Then Stephen spoke. His voice was almost a whisper. I understand. Goodbye, Lucas. I hope you continue to do well.
The line went dead.
Lucas stood at the window of his office. The city was the same. Traffic, towers, the distant hum of millions of lives. Somewhere out there was the Titan Peak building. He couldn't see it from this angle. Cole burst through the door. Lucas, you're not going to believe this. The city's annual Technology Innovation Enterprise Award. We've been nominated. Not just nominated. They want us at the ceremony. The deputy mayor is attending. Lucas turned. He smiled. That's great. You should go. Represent the company. Cole's face scrunched.
What?
You're the founder. You should be up there. I've got a meeting with Chuanghui's chairman that afternoon. Next phase rebuild planning. Lucas put a hand on Cole's shoulder. You deserve it. All of you do.
Go.
Enjoy it. Cole hesitated. Then he nodded, still looking like he wanted to argue, and left. The office settled back into quiet. Lucas sat down. His computer screen glowed. The ARC logo. A simple, clean vessel shape. He thought about the cardboard box. The security guard walking him to the elevator. The barbecue joint. The apartment with bad lighting and air mattresses. The endless nights. The moments they almost broke. None of it felt like a memory. It felt like a foundation. They said he was inadequate. A drag on the team. A roadblock to progress. He opened the Chuanghui rebuild plan document. There was still work to do. More than ever.
Prime Mart expansion.
Chuanghui Phase 2. New clients. Bigger challenges. The ship had left the harbor, and the voyage was just beginning.